Hey there, good morning, good afternoon, whatever time it is. My name's Mark Gunning, and I'm a children's author. I write middle grade adventures. And this is my first book called I Told You So, The Adventures of William and Thomas. The first story I would like to share with you is based somewhat on a true story of my best friend and I when we were kids, and it's called Harry and the Tree. I hope you enjoy. My best friend William and I have a knack for getting into trouble. Sometimes it's not so much trouble, but more like things happen to us. You might say trouble comes easy for us. William texted me to get to his house. In the text message says, "Tree, front yard. What time?" Stat, on my way. Now, stat has many different meanings. The number one meaning, according to William, was get to his house ASAP. I grabbed my bag of gear, which I'll explain later, and headed straight for the door. It was a good thing that William only lived a couple houses over from me. I could get there in less than a minute. By the way, did I tell you that William was impatient? Well, he was. William was standing on his lawn looking up at the biggest tree in his yard. Right at the very top of the tree was his model glider that he had built himself just the week before. There was no way that William would leave his beloved glider without trying everything he could to get it down. The two of us decided to go to the shop to see what we could use. William quickly reached in his pocket and produced a set of plans. He had already drawn them up before I got to his house. William quickly put them up on the board above his workbench and studied them carefully. They looked fairly simple. Plan A. There's a little sketch. Sorry about my It's opposite. There's a little sketch and it shows the two boys about to throw a ball into the tree. And I'd just like to point out that it says Thomas, wimpy arm. The first plan involved throwing my lucky baseball, which I carried in my backpack everywhere I went. It was autographed by my favorite Blue Jay of all time. Folks, there's a little clue in the book. If you can figure out what number I'm talking about, you'll be able to figure out who my favorite Blue Jay of all time was. I didn't want to use it, but William figured it was heavy enough to do the job. He pulled the plans off the board and the two of us headed to the tree and initiated the first plan. I got first honor since it was my ball. I was happy that William was at least letting me go first. I opened my backpack and pulled out the ball and prepared myself. My first throw sailed into the tree and right past through all the leaves and branches. I tried a few more attempts before William grabbed the ball from me and threw it as hard as he could. Well, that didn't work out so well. The ball ended up stuck in the branch right beside the glider. At that moment, I thought to myself, what a great idea, William. William scratched his head and then reached in his back pocket to produce the other plan. Plan B was also simple. One of us would climb the tree and get the glider down safely. That is when William made me climb the tree to retrieve it. I was a pretty good climber, but the glider and the ball were stuck near the top of the tree. At this point, I told him it wasn't a very good idea since the tree was very tall. Unfortunately, it didn't matter to William. Now, in this next diagram by William, it shows William's awesome climbing skills, and there's the glider way up, in the top of the tree. Things were going well as I was making my way up the tree when I couldn't go any further. I wasn't tall enough or strong enough to reach the next closest branch. Looking down, I could see William was not very happy with my lack of progress, so I slowly climbed back down and bet him he couldn't make it. Well, around here a bet was as good as a dare. It was an unwritten law with the kids in my neighborhood. Once a dare or bet had been issued, it had to be done, or at least attempted. No questions asked. William spit in his hands, rubbed them together, and grabbed a hold of the tree. This is the point in time that I'll mention that William outweighed me by about 60 pounds. Remember that for later on. I always say, better to be safe than sorry. I know what you're thinking. How is the big boy going to make it up the tree? Surprisingly, William was a very good climber. He made it up to the first branch and then reached for the second branch, pausing to get a better grip. I noticed that he was beginning to sweat pretty good. He continued to climb branch after branch and stopped to wipe his hands on his shirt. I'm not sure what the logic was when he spat on his hands before he began to climb, but then again, when did we use logic? The journey didn't last very much longer as William got stuck on the next branch. William had made it roughly halfway up the tree when things began to head south. William's arms began to tire, and he was losing his grip. I stared straight up at William as he began to slowly fall. Then, he finally let go. I remember closing my eyes and running from the base of the tree. Hey, I didn't want to be the one to break his fall. I waited to hear the sound of William hitting the ground. Strangely, there wasn't one. So I slowly opened my eyes, looking up at where William was a moment earlier. I didn't see William. He was gone. Then I heard some grunting sounds and looked down near the base of the tree. There was William, hanging from a very tiny branch, only a few feet off the ground, being held up by just his belt. Now that's what I call lucky. William began to wiggle to get unstuck. As he continued to squirm, he began to slowly turn upside down for what seemed like forever to me. This is the point in time that I just stood there staring, thinking of what to do next. William's face was beginning to turn bright red. I had to do something, but what? Quickly, I jumped into action and began trying to twist William upright. It was no use. I wasn't strong enough. Just then the funniest thing happened. He slowly began to slide out of his pants. I had to make another quick decision. Did I help him or take some more pictures to post on our website? Quickly, I proceeded to do the right thing. I grabbed my cell phone out of my backpack and snapped some pictures as fast as I could, making sure I had some really good ones to put on the site. I know what you're thinking. Why would you do this to your best friend? Well, wouldn't you? I happen to have a funny, sometimes weird sense of humor, and when something extremely funny happens, I laugh. A lot. I began to giggle and laugh as he continued to hang upside down on the tree. By now, William was not very pleased with me and had had enough. Then he started to yell. I can't exactly remember what words he used. Okay, I do, but I shouldn't write them down in case any adult ever sees this book. With all the noise and everything going on, William's sheepdog Harry raced around from the backyard and stopped at the base of the tree and looked up. At that exact moment Harry stopped, William's butt popped out of his pants. William began to scream even louder. Harry thought William was playing and began to pull on William's underwear. What was I to do? I took a few more photos for future use and ran to get his mom, who was in the house. When I got to the front door, I knocked and began laughing hysterically. William's mom opened the door and heard all the commotion going on. I couldn't even speak to her, but she knew something was wrong. However, she wasn't sure what to think. His mom spotted William hanging in the tree and ran out the front door. The neat thing was William had a pretty cool mom, and she ran to the tree and began laughing as she scooted Harry away from William. Just as I was getting my laughter under control, I began to laugh again. Tears were now running down my cheeks. There was William's mom and I both staring and laughing at William. By now, William was not a happy camper. He had definitely had enough of Harry and my laughing. To be honest, I wasn't sure what to do because I knew he would be mad, really mad once he got down. William's mom carefully got him unstuck and lowered him to the ground. His face was still beet red. I believe that's when I said, I told you so. William looked at me and then looked at his mother. Then at me, then his mother again. I started to snicker, trying to bite my lip. At that moment, William took one more look at both of us, and then without warning, he came after me. One good thing about being smaller was that I was fast. I turned and headed across the yard and climbed his grandparents' fence and headed for my house without ever stopping. Once I got to my house, I turned around in my driveway and saw that William was standing in his yard by the fence with a very annoyed look on his face. William just stood there for a moment. Suddenly, a huge gust of wind picked up and lifted the glider out of the tree. The glider gently landed at William's feet. Another gust picked up, and this time my baseball fell out of the tree and landed right on top of his glider, crushing it. William bent down and picked up his crushed glider. Now, I thought that was funny. I busted out laughing again, and that's when William snapped. I actually didn't think he would do anything since I was so far away. But then again, you never knew what William would do when he was mad. William backed up a few steps and took a flying leap at his grandparents' fence, clearing it by what I would say was a new world record. He was coming my way and fast. As William got closer and closer, I thought it'd be best to go inside where it was safer. I ran to my front door and quickly opened it, slamming it shut behind me as I went in. Just to be safe, I put on the double lock. My mom was standing in the kitchen looking at me. Without saying a word, I smiled and headed for my room. Just then, I got a text from William. Text message came in. Killer bees tomorrow. P.S. I have your ball. Hardy har har. I replied back, see you tomorrow. This meant only one thing. William had a new plan. I wondered what would happen tomorrow. Oh, I almost forgot to tell you something from earlier. I brought my backpack everywhere with me, and it always had some pretty cool stuff in it. I'd tell you more, but you'll just have to keep reading to see what else is in it. Folks, that concludes chapter 1 called Harry and the Tree from my first book called I Told You So, The Adventures of William and Thomas. The characters are loosely based on my best friend and I growing up when we were kids. We had a lot of fun and we had a lot of great adventures. We grew up out in the country. So a lot of my stories are based on my best friend and I and some of the shenanigans, I like to call it, things that we did around our neighborhood. Later on in the story, you'll learn about Itchy Goonie. Itchy Goonie is just a made-up name for an actual town that's near Niagara Falls, Ontario, in Canada. But anyways, I'll be back again to share more stories. Next time, I'm going to share chapter 2 called The Killer Bees. Until then, keep reading and see you later.